I am a big believer that we can grow together and that conversations are the start of positive change. My name is Fiona Mehmet and I'm the founder of Noblesse, a sustainable fashion brand to help you do the right thing, stand in your greatness, build a wardrobe that is true to you along with a lifestyle. Conversations for Change podcast is here to bring you weekly episodes with experts in sustainable fashion, leadership, and advocates for world change. Each episode is thought-provoking, it's life-changing, and it's a structured way to give you 3 key tips on each episode to build a sustainable life without shame, without overwhelm, and without judgment. The topic for this season is how do we change our buying behaviors for a more sustainable future? I am really excited to share this with you. It's been a long time in the making. Please follow, like, and share each episode so we can continue to build a better, more sustainable future for ourselves and for our children's children. Hello and welcome to Conversations for Change. This episode is with Kelly Duffy, who is a lifestyle designer, productivity buff, and health and wellness champion. Her and her husband are working on their dream life at the moment, which is living off the land in Sunshine Coast hinterland. So sustainable advocates, living and breathing the sustainable lifestyle. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. I know we have lots of interesting conversations behind the scenes. So I thought, why not bring one live to Conversations for Change?
Yeah, absolutely. I know there are always so much gold in them.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to start off and let everyone get to know who you are and how sustainability really plays a big role in your life. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. Well, I guess I live in Brisbane. So, living in the big city for a long time, sustainability kind of didn't really factor so much in my life, but it's really interesting how the journey of life sort of takes you. I lived a very fast life and there probably wasn't a lot of space to think about things like sustainability at that point. But I think when it all started was about 7 or 8 years ago when I opened a bulk health food store. So that's all about waste reduction. So it all kind of started there at that point. So then you sort of get into the, more sustainable food side of stuff. And I think that's sort of where I started, was around sustainability with food, reducing waste in that space. And then it's sort of over time, that buying in bulk kind of permeated in my life. And then things like, where do my clothes come from, and where does everything that I own come from? How is it made? What is its impact? Those sorts of things sort of started to just seep in over time. So now I'm definitely not perfect, but I'm always striving to get better. And I think that's my thing. I'm big about progress over perfection. So I'm always trying to find new ways. And I also try to be kind to myself, because I do live in the city, so I don't get to grow my own food yet. But that's that's the dream, is to be able to live off the land and be much more sustainable than we are where we are. Because I think it's really important, and it's certainly growing. It's like a swelling within me, that it's the importance of that is just getting stronger and stronger as I move through time.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Once you start growing your own fruit or veg, or you grow something, the feeling of being able to go into the garden or go into your plant pot and be able to pick your own vegetable or fruit or something you want to eat straight away, it's so refreshing compared to having to go into the shops and be surrounded by just products for the sake of making products, or just everything, or the commercialization and consumerism. I find I try to limit the amount of times I go to the shops, and I try to go more to Northeast Street and see if I can get as many of our produce locally. And I know you're a big advocate for this too. How do you, I suppose for the everyday person, how do you work out where is the best place to get, say, your vegetables or your meat, in regards to where's the best options, what's going to be the most ethical option too, and what's going to be the easiest option if you're just starting out on that kind of sustainability journey, because you've been through that stage. What advice would you have for someone in that stage of life?
Yeah, well, you touched on it. The Northeast Street markets, if you're in Brisbane, is a great place to start. So, your local organic market, ideally organic. I get, there's sometimes often price comes up around organic, and I completely understand that. But I think the most important thing for me is about the practices. So I like to get to know the farmer and buy directly from the farmer. And that's what you get to do at the markets. So you don't get to do that at the shops. You're kind of at the mercy of their buyers. Unless you can find you live somewhere where someone sources directly from farms, and then that's epic. I know like Sovereign Foods who go to the Northeast Street markets actually source directly from farms. So they've got relationships. So that's a good place to start too, is somewhere that they're doing the work, so you don't have to. So you can trust, like I've got websites where I buy my beauty, personal care and beauty products from, because I know how diligent they are. So then I don't have to read every single label and know everything. I can kind of put a level of trust in them. And I think that's a really important place to start, because if you're trying to source every single item individually, it's just too much. Like, life is so busy and we've all got commitments and work and time, family commitments and all these things pressing on our time. And it can just seem too much. So I think just the most important thing is, go to a market, which we turned that into like a ritual. So we sit and have a cuppa, and, we've made friends. Like, that's how we met, was at the market. Yes. And we've got other friends that we've met.
For that. Yeah. I find even going as a customer now on the other side, because having a stall, it was very, obviously you're waking up at 3 a.m. and you're pretty much setting up a whole shop at that time. So you don't really visit many other stores because you're stuck at your store. So the customer now being on the other side is a surreal experience, but it's kind of refreshing as well. You don't have to wake up at 3 a.m. You have to get the fresher produce, right? Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. It's true. Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's it. Just, find something that you're particularly passionate about. So if there's something in particular about sustainability that you're passionate about, start there. Don't worry about the big picture, because that's like a Pandora's box. I think, we can get caught up in also that perfectionism type mentality around it. And I think that's a lot I see in my work, in my lifestyle design work. I tend to find, and I was a type A personality where everything was like, had to be, and, I'm going to make it happen, and, at our own detriment. But then at the same time, it can be all too hard, and then we just don't do anything. So 1% progress every day is 365% progress over the course of a year.
Yeah, I love that.
So that's, I think, just start where you're at. Don't be hard on yourself, and just take one step.
And if it's, say it's a one step in regards to, so say if you just went, okay, I love vegetables, but I've got to pick one vegetable in the food group that I can do better at sourcing where I get it from. So starting there, like really niching down on one particular thing, would you say that's easier than going for, okay, I'm going to get all my veggies from this store, or I'm just going to be particular about where I get my broccoli from to start with?
Yeah, well, I think if that's where you're at and that's all you can cope with, then just do that. There is also the clean 15 and the dirty dozen. So there's the 15 products that are it's less of an issue if you don't get them organic. And some of them are the root type vegetables, things that don't need to be sprayed so much. Yes. And the dirty dozen are the ones that you absolutely want to try and source from a place where they're not using pesticides. And it might not be certified organic, but if they're using organic practices. So if you want to go to that point, I would definitely just Google the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen, and that's a great place to start, particularly if price is, because we all started somewhere. Yeah. I started with one product 20 years ago, and that was, well, two products, shampoo and conditioner. That's where I started.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's brilliant. So it really depends on what's important to you as well, about what you put on your skin, what you put on your hair. If you're particularly careful with what you put on your face, then you could start with face moisturizer. If it's what you put on your arms or your legs, it could be a t-shirt or shorts, that kind of thing. So yeah, touching on clothing, how did you start your fashion sustainability lifestyle? Because I know you're a big advocate, in supporting local brands, and you've got some amazing pieces as well from local storeholders too, including myself. Yeah. So where did you, I suppose, what was important for you in that area of your life?
It started from supporting local, I think, for me. That's really important. And then I started to look deeper into what does that mean. And I guess people I bought from kind of educated me in a way, by them talking about what they do, and I guess me thinking more about a slow life, living a more of a, the slow food movement's a thing, the slow fashion movement's a thing. Like, I think there's so many areas of life where the slow movement has become kind of fashionable. But I think as we're ejecting ourselves from city life, I think we're just trying to slow down, and then that also feeds into being less consumer based. So I think it was a number of things. It was, supporting local was has been important to me. Supporting small businesses, that's another thing that's important to me, as a small business owner myself, and being surrounded by small business owners, I always want to support them. And then also just, learning, being exposed to more stories about, the way that, people that work in companies are treated, sourcing from China myself for products. That was a real eye-opener as well. It wasn't clothing products, but, also just kind of being exposed to that world. I think it kind of was a little bit jarring, and just a lot of different things all kind of came together in this perfect storm that made me think, wow, where does everything come from? Clothing, my water glass, my laptop, like I'm really thinking deeply about everything. And clothing, I guess, is I had misconceptions about sustainable clothing. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things I needed to overcome, like that it's super expensive, which, I mean, any kind of clothing can be super expensive, but it doesn't have to be. No. And, following some content creators around sustainable fashion and slow fashion, and using what you've got and being thoughtful and actually curating a closet, like that appealed to me, because I'm a real left brainer. I love things that are sort of organized, and I can really dig myself into a project. So that, I have to admit, that kind of really was one of the things that kind of got me going, was finding gaps and then really thoughtfully replacing things, or thoughtfully filling the gaps. So yeah, I think it was just thinking about it, and not just being out and just bringing home stuff that really had no value, just like being caught in the emotion, like feeding. It's like an addiction. I think I had a shopping addiction. So I would just buy stuff, and then I come home and be like, I don't really need that. Like, why did I even buy that? Doesn't add any value to my life. So I think I had a lot of stuff that I had to kind of clear away before I got to that point where I'm just more intentional about my clothing and my life.
Yeah, you touched on something that a lot of us go through in regards to when we impulse buy, or when we buy because we like the style, and it might be from a local brand, but we're not making sure that it's something that is a sustainable lifestyle choice. Like, I spoke to someone this morning actually that said she bought a beautiful pair of linen pants, and they were a style she knew they wouldn't repeat again, but she got them because she wanted that one off. But it wasn't a sustainable purchase, even though it was from a local brand, and a sustainable, and used sustainable fibers. It was still an impulse buy in that retrospect, that she's only worn it twice and she's had it for about 5 years. So it's that piece that still sits in the wardrobe. And I said to her, would it have more life? Would it have more value if you gifted it to someone that would wear it more often, because that style is more their style? And then you find the more casual looks would suit you more, because the adventurous style of those linen pants for some reason just wasn't you, wasn't true to you. So we really have a lot of conversations around building a wardrobe that is true to you. And that's something that we do with Noblesse as well, with the made to order pieces, because it's so important that we think about what we have hanging in the wardrobe already. Does it fill us with that dread, that feeling in your stomach where I don't have anything to wear, but I feel guilty now because I do have a lot in my wardrobe, but it's just something that I was adventurous and I wanted to have that skirt or have that dress because I knew I'd wear it, but I wouldn't wear it every day or that often to give it the value of life that it deserves.
So, and I think there's also, I was just thinking while you were talking about, like, for me, I've had a big lifestyle change over the last, like, I worked in government and corporate. I was also a fitness instructor. So I either lived in tights or work gear. And then, I had the bulk health food store, so I was still living in tights. And then that sort of happened. And I've moved into a more feminine kind of style. And that's an interesting thing to wrap your head around when you're starting to transition into being more sustainable, because you're like, well, these pieces don't serve me anymore. They're not the expression that I want to put out into the world anymore. And that was a really tricky time to move through that, to work out, what do I do? Because I have all these beautiful pieces, but I don't want to wear them anymore. And then I don't want to just put them in a charity bin perhaps, but then nobody else fits. Like, nobody I knew was sort of that size. So I went backwards and forwards with a wardrobe full of things that weren't my lifestyle anymore, just suit the expression of who I was becoming. And then ultimately the thing that made them move out of the wardrobe was they didn't fit anymore. But it took that time until they didn't fit anymore before I decided to, give them to, I ended up giving them to charity, or I gave some to people that they might have worked for, but the large majority went to charity to get a new lease on life, because they'd been living in my wardrobe for years doing nothing. Just making me feel bad every time I looked in there.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm fully believing now in the fact that our every piece of clothing, even if it's casual at home, should make us feel like who we are, should make us feel true to our style. And that takes a lot of time. Like, that takes time and effort in getting to know yourself as well, and having an emotional safe space, and having women around you that do point you in the right direction, or do have your best interests at heart, and will go, shopping with you and point you in the direction of a more ethical choice, instead of saying, hey, let's just go get something because we need it right now, or because you're going through a hard time, let's just buy something for that immediate satisfaction, which we've all done.
So well.
I know. Yeah. I was literally thinking of like where that pattern started, and I think that was as a teenager. You have you'd have like an argument with a friend and you go shopping, or something would happen that was dramatic and you'd go shopping. That was the answer. Well, especially in England, because for us growing up there, it was raining and it was cold, so you go inside in shopping centres.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and it's not till you know better, but it's not till it actually hits a pain point for you where you feel like your wardrobe's not fulfilling you, and you get that, like you said, the dread and just not liking anything in there until it doesn't fit, and that's when you do something about it.
And I think, when you came to my women's circle and we were having that conversation, that was such an important conversation, I think, because a lot of the people there had not really thought about sustainability too much. And it was so interesting to get their perspective and hear stories about things that prompted them actually to come to that conversation and to feel like they could be safe to express things like stories that they'd heard about brands. And, they're sort of just not that they're becoming more mainstream conversations, but they can be, I think, tricky for people to bring up because it can be quite confronting. And I think that's one of the things is, having a tribe around us or having, people that, like you were saying, that, can be something you can bounce off or give you ideas or even, ways to maybe restyle something so you can wear it in a different way or, things like that. Finding that safe space where you can explore this concept and integrate it into part of your life, because actually there's so many parallels between living that, moving into that sustainable lifestyle that you can carry into the rest of your life. Because I feel like I did it the other way. I, kind of all these values sort of happened and then sustainability was sort of the byproduct. But if sustainability is where you want to go, then you can just take it the other way. And then that becomes, integrates into your values and into your life. So I think it's like, how do you integrate that concept into who you are, who's in your life, how you live your life in a way that feels like you can sustain that as well as it being sustainable. How do you sustain a sustainable
life? That's it. Yeah, you really touched on something there, because when we had the conversation circle, it stood out to me how much knowledge we do have, but we're not holding those conversations as much as we should, because we think people should just know. And it's that limitation that knowledge does give us. And then what do we do with it? We don't tell people what we know. We kind of shame them for it, for not knowing. If that makes sense. So having that, with you creating that emotional safe space for them was really empowering and inspirational to see, because it gave them really the safe space to say, actually, I don't know what I'm doing. Actually, I'm at the beginning of my journey. How do I get there? How do I do better? Like, I know that, these things are happening in the world. I know there's exploitation. I know there's children involved, but how do I not go back into old habits, and how do I create new ones without, going backwards? Because there's a lot of shame out there with, if we, fall into a loop of the easy option of just going to Kmart and getting a pair of scissors, which we're going to do every now and then. So it's just having that compassion for yourself, which was what we were talking about, and not saying, you failed, because we've all got that.
And that's the progress.
Better if we do fall back, we have that, that voice in our head that says you're a failure now. But we really need to be kinder and say, actually, I have done this better, or I'm more consistent with buying this toilet paper, or I have bought a pair of linen pants from a new local brand that invests in providing employment for local machinists, and that is the way that I'm giving back. So if you can do maybe one new thing a month that can help someone be kinder to themselves, than having a whole list of 20 things that I should be doing, but I don't do any of them because I've got into freeze response, because there's a lot of fear around having those conversations in case they'll be judged.
Yeah, exactly. And that overwhelm, I think, is key, because where do you start? How do you even, you're like, yeah, I know this stuff happens, but what am I supposed to do about that? How am I supposed to do better? And that's open conversation. So I've been able to share websites and articles and things that I've found of Australian brands that are doing good things. We've been able to share your brand with people in my world, and that's really cool. I love that we can do that. And I think it's, now I'm able to impart some of that wisdom and the things that, like you say, we know all this stuff, but I just assume everybody does. And it's not to say that people should know. It doesn't occur to me quite often that people might not know, because I just think, oh, well, if I know, surely everybody knows. So it's sort of, being open. No, my husband tells me that all the time, especially around health and food and all of that sort of stuff. He's like, people don't know this. And I'm like, really? They don't know this? Okay. So, like, to me, it's so obvious, but I guess it's the same. It's like, we don't value what comes easy to us. So yeah, it's like, I guess, just being open to the fact that people don't necessarily know what we know, and sharing, because if you're investigating sustainable socks, for example, or, then I don't have to, because you've already done the work, and then I can investigate sustainable linen pants, and you can share that research as well. We don't have to do it all. No man is an island. Yes. So, as they say, it takes a village. Like raising a child, it takes a village. Well, it takes a village for us to live our life, in my opinion. Let us come together and, feed off each other's knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
No. And what I found so profound in those conversation circles, the one specifically that we did with yourself and your group, it was how open people were with what they actually needed. So if I asked the question with one of the ladies to say, what do you actually need help with? Would a guide on sustainability help you? Maybe you could have a checklist and maybe tick one box per month. Would that help you get to where you want to go? And what's your goals with a sustainable lifestyle? And people were very honest and very transparent. And they actually said, we need more conversations. I want more conversations. So I kind of took the idea and ran with it and created this conversation. So it was a turning point moment. So thank you for providing that space. I wanted to kind of give our audience and give the people that are listening 3 key takeaways that they can action today in regards to leading a more conscious lifestyle. Is there 3 key things that helped you in your journey?
I think stepping back and looking at my life as a whole, so taking a moment to sort of step up to that more helicopter level, and create an idea of what I might want life to look like. So starting with, where am I? And then moving into what doesn't work, what does work, and then what does the end result look like. So I think that little, that quite simple process, I think, is really important. I think focus on progress over perfection. We've said that a couple of times. And then be kind to yourself. And if I can add a 4th one, get into community and share. Receive information from others, share what you learn, and that's how we move forward, is by being a community. Yeah, and that's all, if you break them down, they're really simplistic things that people can action now, especially the being kinder to yourself. I think that will create more action, because it will stop that freeze response. And also that stepping back and just saying, okay, where am I right now? Am I happy with it? And, where would I like to be? And how do I get there with the small steps? Like you said, with the 1% progress every day, right? All right. And you have to do that 100 days a year to get 100% progress. So
That's it. And can you tell us where we can find you and what are you up to right now? How can we help you with your business journey, with your sustainability journey, and with your lifestyle?
Yeah, so you can find me at lifestyledesign.com.au. That's where I have all of my stuff going on. And I think for me, you know, I'm building community too every day. So how people can help me is, you know, I run circles and they're on the website. So, you know, come to a circle, be it physical or virtual, or just send me an email, like send me a message and let's have a conversation, because I think there's not enough conversations, and I'm always open to speaking with people. There's no obligation. You know, I'm always up for a cuppa, aren't I, Fiona? I'll take a cuppa.
It's like an addiction.
Yeah,
it's to keep coming around for a cuppa.
Yeah, and that's it. It's conversations, community.
Yeah.
And if I can help in any way, if you've got questions, if there's anything that I can do, you can just email me at kelly@lifestyledesign.com.au, and I'm really happy to help where I can, potentially point you in the right direction if I don't know something, or I probably know somebody who can help. So yeah, feel free to reach out, and I'd love to hear from your lovely listeners.
Thank you so much. I feel like you've got so much to contribute, and you do really hold a safe space for women to build a better lifestyle for themselves. So I really hope that people do reach out to you. And yeah, if you have any comments or any feedback about this episode, please comment below or send us an email on fiona@noblesse.fashion. This is Conversations for Change. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you have an amazing day and lead a more sustainable life.